Oh, Luis, you're
Good morning, Cairo.
sideways.
What?
You're there. You are. Ooh.
Ah, good morning, my friend.
Good morning,
Welcome.
Louise. How are you today?
Hey, David. Doing good. How you doing?
Well, I'm still living.
Hmm.
Luis,
Ah,
did you have a good work week?
do we have to talk about that?
Was it rough?
Life is rough. Life is rough. It was okay. It was okay. It was okay. Uh, it's just a work week. What can I tell you?
Well, it
How
doesn't
was
sound
your?
like you enjoyed yourself this past week,
Oh,
Louise.
sorry.
They say it
That's,
doesn't sound like you enjoyed yourself this past week.
well, it was a complicated week. It's just a lot of stuff. But hey, it's just like life, right? You have to manage it the best you can with the tools that you have, and it is what it is.
are
No,
you
no.
are you selling? Uh, are you selling faster than you can put them out?
We we're doing good. We're the sales are there, and typically it's the fulfillment of the orders that is the challenge. How to make things fast to satisfy the demand. Yeah.
Now you're gonna have to set up a factory in in Wangchung, China.
Wanchong. Wanchong. Yeah. So how was your week, Jairo and David? How was everything?
Iro, you go first.
Hmm. Oh, wow. My week went by fast. I I did a lot of announcing of wake up and think clearly, like putting them
It worked. You have two guys here.
for
Yeah,
premiere.
it
I,
worked, Cairo.
I put up. I've got a lot of videos on YouTube of our sessions, and I put them as world premieres. So
Ooh.
today we're gonna have a world premiere of a of previous week's session at 7:30 p.m. So stay tuned and get on YouTube at YouTube channel Wake Up and Think Clearly. That's Wake Up with the
This
letter
is
N for
we.
and. Instead of writing AND, it's N, the letter N. Wake Up and Think
Uh-huh.
Clearly. All together, no
We're
space.
gonna be bigger than Tech Talks.
Yeah,
And
right.
and we also have it as a podcast. So you can listen to it at anchor.fm / Hirosophy Jam Yang or something like that.
I'd also be. All right.
And we're going to have Justin Shinryu from London joining us.
Oh, good. Is he here now or not?
I was chatting with him on Messenger. He hasn't joined yet. I told him to get his coffee. Oh, no,
Oh,
he doesn't need to get coffee. He's probably eating lunch.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's probably eating lunch. Right.
So, how was your weekend, David Norton?
My week is always sort of strange in a way, I mean, I just do my regular Uber driving. But this past week, I was invited to a meetup down in Winter Park that was normally held. They used to have it at Rollins, and I had some skepticism about going. So I told the lady not that I wasn't coming, but then I changed my mind and I ended up going to this meeting.
Hmm.
And there was one thing that really stood out to me that I was totally unaware of. And that is that before World War I, FDR, um, made several encouraging speeches to the nation as President of the United States. And
Wow.
in those speeches before the war, its first was given, I believe, in January of 9th or something like that, 1941, which was 9 months before, or I think 10 months or 11 months before the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And within that, he had 4 freedoms that he stressed to the United States people, the people of the United States. And that was, one was a freedom of speech and expression. And number 2 was the freedom of worship. And number 3 was the freedom of want. And number 4 was the freedom of fear. And you know that FDR was notorious for his words, there's nothing to fear but fear itself. But
Yep.
the only interesting thing that came about that to me that I really question and see happening in today's world is that there was a charter, what they call it, the Atlantic Charter for NATO. Okay. And in that Atlantic Charter, there was only 2 of those freedoms that were included, which really sort of formed the Declaration of Independence for Europe and also the allied countries that made up NATO. And what those 2 were was the freedom of want and also the freedom of fear. So the thing is, I'm asking myself, how do you get a freedom of want? Is there such a thing in a person, period, because of the fact that, you know, without want, where are we? We don't have anything. It's nothing. And the thing is, they also didn't include the spirit of, or the freedom of worship. Now, the thing is, usually when people look at worship, worship is considered, you know, usually it has a religious connotation. But the thing is, actually, if you consider worship as to what true worship is, I mean, some people worship their mother, their father, their wife, their husband. Some people worship Michael Jordan or basketball, football player. And the substance of worship is actually what we actually do. So, you know, like whatever we are made up of is really what we worship. And that is pointed out biblically in, you know, the desert with Moses and how people worshiped gold and they made the golden calf and all that, rather than trying to absorb the words that they were taught. You know, so I found that very interesting because I find the division now that's going on is between NATO and the United States. And the thing is, with NATO trying to take us over through many different courses, the desire for want is there. And I look at what Louise said about wanting to have income with a standard income of $1,000 a month. Okay, if somebody would be willing to work. Well, that there is a want that, you know, provides for all the people something and takes away their worship, their freedom of worship to get what they want in any way that they possibly can. So I guess my question is there such a thing as freedom of want and freedom of fear?
Freedom of want.
Freedom of want is the question. What you're saying, freedom of want is, are we free to want stuff or to will? The freedom of will, free will. Is that what you're asking?
Well, the thing is, it's like anything else. Oftentimes a word has 2 definitions. And if you take the word freedom of want, you know, that means the person would not want anything, therefore you would not fear anything.
Oh, freedom from wanting.
No, freedom of, say, let me see what it says. I got it written down here. Yeah, it's freedom from want. You're right, Luis. That's the way it was written. Freedom from want. Okay. So
that's a different ball of wax there.
And what about freedom of fear? Is it freedom of fear or freedom
from fear?
from fear?
Okay, it's freedom from fear.
Okay. So
Mm.
now the question becomes much more clear to me, because I thought they were asking, are we free to want? That's what we do all the time. We want. And are we free to be afraid? And of course, we are afraid also, because everything is, I think I've told you guys my expression that the mind is a prisoner in a dipole of between attraction and repulsion. So the attraction would be the freedom to want. I want this, I want that, I desire this. And the other one is I'm the opposite of the wanting. So when you want something, you fear the opposite, not having. Like if I want a house, it's because I want a house, because not having a house repels me. I abhor the idea of not having a house or a roof over my head. So now that they changed the question is, do I have freedom not to want, and do I have the freedom not to fear? And this goes to the core of the teachings of Buddhism, and before that the teachings of Hinduism, which look at everything like a fire. The human consciousness is on fire. The eye is a fire. There's a sutra called the Fire Sutra. The eye is on fire. The touch is on fire. The tongue is on fire. The nose is on fire. So we want, we desire, we need, and that attraction, the opposite of it is the fear. So do we have are we able to free ourselves from our wants, and are we able to free ourselves from our fears? And if you read the Four Noble Truths, which is the fundamental teaching of Buddha, is exactly what he's talking about. That life is this dipole of wanting and abhorring, and that the source of suffering is precisely that agitation of the mind that wants something and is repelled by something. And the word that he uses in that originally is tanha, which is like thirst or craving. So he contends that when we eliminate our cravings, which are made of attraction and repulsion, so it's just desire and abhorrence, we remain calm and happy, contented. So the answer to the question that was posed in that meetup, Buddha says, yes, we can be free from wanting, and we can be free from fearing.
How?
The answer to the how is spelled in the third noble truth and the fourth noble truth. So the how is when we stop wanting or fearing, then we are free from them. And then the next one is how the hell do you do that? How the hell do you stop from wanting to eat and live and have stuff and enjoy myself and belong to a relationship or a group or da-da-da? How do I stop from wanting to like myself and have self-esteem and take care of my body, my mind, and travel and know and learn and blah 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 blah? And the fourth noble truth is the what is called the middle way, or the Eightfold Path. And that in and of itself is a whole discipline of life that has to do basically with ethics, morality, sila, meditation and mindfulness, samadhi, and ultimate transcendent wisdom, panya. So sila, samadhi, panya, which is the summary of the Eightfold Path. But if I Google this for you, because I never took the trouble of memorizing it like a student of Buddhism, because I'm not a Buddhist, it's the right thinking, the right intention, the right living, the right profession. I'm gonna spell them out for you, because that's the whole exercise of life, the whole discipline of life, which is conducive to quenching our thirst and our fears.
Okay, but the thing, I don't know, the whole thing sounds very subjective and legalistic.
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
But
That's a. But if you ask me, for example, I'll say yes. That's you take it or you leave it. If you ask me, does it work for you?
let me. Do you mind if I read something from Jesus Christ? And I want to take and see if you can take and correlate this to something in Buddhism, because Buddhism and that line of thought and theory and so on and so forth. But this is somewhat different to me, where and I'll point this out as I read this. What he does is comes up with a way or a how to deal with this. Okay, so let me start. Let's see, where is it? It says, "No man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else will hold on to one and despise the other." He says you cannot serve God and mammon, which is actually, mammon means anything that is desired from within the self that has value. It's a person's esteem or whatever you may look at. "Therefore I say to you, take no thought of your life, of what you shall eat or what ye shall drink, nor yet your body what ye shall put on. Is not the life more than meat, and the body than raiment? Watch the fowls of the air. They do not sow, neither do they reap, nor gather into their barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much better than they? Which of you, by taking thought, can add 1 cubit unto your stature? And why take thought for raiment? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They toil not, neither do they spin. And yet I say to you that even Solomon in all his glory was arrayed like one of these. Wherefore, if God so clothe the grass of the field, which today is and tomorrow is cast into the oven, how much more are you, O you of little faith? Therefore, take no thought, saying, what will I eat, or what will I drink, wherewith all shall be clothed? For all these things the Gentiles seek. For your heavenly Father know what ye have need of, all these things. But seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all things shall be added unto you. Take therefore no thought of tomorrow, for tomorrow will take thought of the things of itself. Sufficient to the day is the evil thereof. And then he goes on with the solution. Judge not, that you not be judged. For with the judgment you judge, you will be judged. And with the measure you judge, it will be measured back to you again. And why do you focus on the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but do not consider the beam that is in your own eye? Or how will you say to your brother, let me pull out the sliver out of your eye, and behold, the beam is in your own eye? You hypocrite, first cast out the beam out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to cast out the sliver out of your brother's eye. Give not that which is holy to the dogs, neither do you cast your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn again and rend you. And then he gives the solution, how to overcome this. Ask, and it shall be given to you. Seek, and you shall find. Knock, and it will be opened unto you. For everyone that asks receives, and he that seeks finds, and to him that knocks it will be open. Or what man is there of you whom his son asks for bread, will he give him a stone? Or if he asks a fish, will give him a serpent? If you then, being evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father, which is in heaven, give good things to them that ask him? Therefore, all things whatsoever you would want that men should do to you, do even so to them. For this is the law and the prophets. For me, Jesus gives a solution that allows us to get answers, and that's by asking a question. It's very simple. And the thing is, through asking a question and seeking answers for ourselves, we find solutions that overcome there are fears and also our wants. Once they're overcome, they no longer are a want, and they're no longer a fear. But the thing is, when mankind tries to take and provide for them through various different needs of, of people giving to an organization and then given to people, the thing is, the person has no need to take and try to look out for himself, and to me, this is a solution that is offered, through Jesus Christ to overcome all of these little different problems that we have. Now, the only thing is, like I say, by the words that we express, we also are expressing our wants and also fears too.
Luis,
Yes.
what do you think of that? How does that compare to the Buddha's recipe? It sounds like the Buddha is giving a recipe for self-regulation, and Jesus is giving a recipe for submission to the Father, and having faith and confidence that all one's needs will be taken care of. So instead of questioning oneself interiorly, one is questioning a concept called your Father. What is that?
Well, number one, let me just say regarding that, is the thing is, when you look and define definition of Father and Father God or whatever, what he's referring to is nature. It's that simple. The thing is, he uses, because Jesus speaks in parables, okay, which is a figurative way of speaking. Okay, he's referring to nature as it exists as being the ultimate judgment in person.
Nature, not just as in Mother Nature, but also nature including society. It would have to be.
Yeah, he does that. Well, the thing is, society contains, the nature of people, versus the nature of the world that we live in. They're two different things, because people can create their own nature by the words that they use, and that there becomes a reflection when they speak of what their own worship is. I mean, like if you talk about, say, if you're somebody that's Islamic and you talk about the Quran and Muhammad and all that, okay, the thing is, that person is actually worshiping those things that come out of their mouth as part of their own being, just like yourself. I mean, you guys have been focused on Buddhism, which I look at Buddhism too, to a degree, but not to the degree that you have. Okay, that there becomes a worship in its own way, even though it may not be acknowledged, of something that is worship, because you may be looking at a definition of worship of being something different. It's just like somebody, a young kid that may worship a basketball player and want to be like them. You know, the thing is, all they're going to talk about is, say, Michael Jordan or whoever it may be. And they're actually worshiping two things. Number one, basketball, and also the person that, you know, may be good at it and trying to learn from them, which is what we do when we worship something. We want to learn, okay? It's just another nature of people, is this desire of community, of belonging, and being part of a community. It's inbred in all people, you know, just like we're all here today because we have a common interest in philosophy and trying to understand life.
David, what does it mean by not judging? This we would be judged. Does that encompass also judging ourselves, or does that require that we only judge ourselves, judge our
Well,
actions?
the thing is, he speaks in parables, and the purpose of a parable is to have multiple meanings. And the thing is, you can look at it as judging yourself, judging others, judging, you know, anything that you do during the day. I mean, whether you realize it or not, there is a judgment that results from whatever you're doing and everything that you do. And the thing is, his point is to take and not make that the idolatry or the worship of a person's life, but to accept it and let it come in and go out and use it as a learning experience.
Is it possible to take actions without making judgments? Like we're making choices constantly, and that involves judgments. How can we not judge?
Well, the thing is, everybody does judge. There's no way that you can leave without it. You know, the thing is, if you looked at the very last sentence, this is so much a part of everybody's life and what's repeated. But this is not really Jesus's true. It says, therefore, the things whatsoever you would do, would want that men should do to you, do even so to them, for this is the law and the prophets. I mean, the thing is, what this statement is all about, in him saying this, is that, hey, you know, like Luis, he's at work, he has a certain profession. So the thing is, whatever people question wherever he's at while he's at his work, okay, he needs to respond to them in kind. Okay, and the same as yourself, you know, take and look for things like in your family that you would want them to do, you know, to you, and do unto them. You know, those are acts of kindness. But the thing is, he also has another teaching that is very similar to that. And he says, do unto others as I have done unto you. So the thing is, in order to find out what he's done unto me, I have to take and analyze his own teachings, like even the teachings here, and how that applies to that particular relationship, which is actually two different things, because people generally will do what is at the end of this here little teaching. They will do unto others as to what others they will
but there's a
do unto
problem.
others, but they would have others do unto them. What?
But there's a problem, David.
Well,
what if I want something done unto me, and so I do it unto others, but they don't like it? How can we know what they want based on what we want? What if we want to eat
well, that there is in the solution.
They want to eat an apple. Maybe they're not hungry, and we're forcing a banana when they want an apple.
Well, the answer to that is very simple, and something that nobody's ever taught to do, and that's to ask questions, of which he says as to how to overcome these different things. Ask and it shall be given unto you. This is not only in reference to, say, to nature, but also in reference to everybody that you encounter on a daily basis. If you want something from them, or you want them to do something unto you, ask them. You know, if you ask them, then you find out where they stand. It doesn't mean that you're going to get it or not going to get it, but without asking, there's going to be no agreement whatsoever. And what's going to end up happening is a person's going to force their will upon another person. And that there is considered evil in the person that's being forced, the will is being forced upon.
So, Jairo, you were asking me how I felt about all this that was read. And, well, you guys were talking, I reread, because this is Matthew, whatever. And I see the first line itself is so putting you in a corner. The first one says you cannot serve two masters. Either you serve God or you serve money. There's a line in the sand there. It's like,
Yeah, but
dude,
that's wrong.
but-
That's wrong, Luis. That's taking a literal approach to everything that's being said. And when you do that, you're right. Everything that
Oh.
you read and understand is going to be wrong.
but what is he going to?
I agree with you.
What is
Oh.
it trying to tell me? What is it trying to tell me?
What he could be saying is that our mind was not designed for was not really designed for multitasking, so that when you do
See,
when you're doing something, you have one intention at a time, so you can't do two or more things at once. But even though
but that doesn't make any sense. The human mind is complex. The human mind breaks down things. And when you say something like that, which dogmatically sounds, oh my gosh, I mean, I better serve God because I cannot serve money, it already puts like a line in the sand not to cross. I mean, and you cannot question that either. You see? So automatically, when I was predisposed to take the word as the word, of course it would just already put you in a, it's like, okay, I better do what they tell me. Forget about money, forget about things. And it continues going on saying, okay, so it's either God or money, right there.
That's not true, Luis.
But that's what it's saying. That's what it's saying. And then we have, but we have to argue. If you ask me, what do you think about this, Louis?
Okay.
I'll tell you, well, to me, either I take it literally or I have to interpret this in a different way. But even literally, if I start saying that it's either the this way or the highway, it's already divisive. So it makes a clear distinction right there purposely. I mean, this guy is not mincing words. He's saying you cannot serve money and God at the same time. That means that if you have anything with money, you're already not serving God. But the contradiction goes on in the text, because then it says, don't worry. Don't do anything, because God is going to do it for you. It's paternalistic.
So there's there's no apparent moral prescription, but by following the golden rule, perhaps that is a safeguard or enough to take care of all interactions. By one thinking, oh, what do I want? Oh, what do they want? Oh,
but see, it's even bad to,
I shouldn't
from the
harm
perspective of the text. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Jairo, but from the perspective of the text, it's not applicable to say, what do I want? Because they're telling you it's not what you want, it's what the Lord wants. Just don't worry. I mean, and he keeps saying, do not worry. You don't have to do anything, because you're going to be clothed like the birds in the fields and stuff like that. So it's a constant contradiction. And the most that I get from it is like, I have no say in this. I have to submit myself to the will of God and see what happens. And if what happens is bad, just take it, because if you don't, then you're not serving your master. So it takes away my questioning. It takes away my rationality. It takes away my will to decide and think and question, even respectfully. It doesn't say, well, you can question, but you have to do it nicely. No. Don't worry. Don't ask. Don't do. The Lord will provide to you, because when you ask, he will give you. And to me, it's like, well, I just don't see that. This is not the daily thing that I see in reality.
Well, couldn't you be asking questions about specific details, politely saying why should I be doing this versus that? Is
But
that okay?
yeah, I mean, my first question would be, what's the deal with God and money? What's the dividing line there? Am I supposed not to have any money? Am I supposed not to have any bread to eat? Because that's
Or
money.
maybe you're supposed to not love it, not worship it, but use it
But
like a
if
tool?
you're not supposed to worship money, you're not supposed to worship God either. Or you can only worship God. That's what it's saying. God is the master. Money is the bad guy. Don't be judgmental, except for dogs and swine. It's like, dude. I mean, where do we stand with this? Where is the rationality of the? Where are we going with this? What are you trying to tell me, Matthew? You know, keep it straight. If you say don't do shit, don't think shit, just give yourself to the Lord, sit down and just wait for God to clothe you like birds on the trees, then I'll do that. But then, am I really a human being? What am I? I'm just another animal out there roaming around the trees.
Maybe it's a
Okay,
form. Maybe it's an early form of communism. Not as a government communism, but to live in a small group and be taken care of communally. So
To me, it's a
everybody's
form of
in the
subjugation. This text, what the Matthew is saying, if he really existed, or whatever it was, to me, it's this is like a declaration of subjugation of man to God, whatever that is, wherever he is, I don't care. This is like the curfew. Stop thinking, stop living, stop wanting. Just give yourself to Big Brother.
but in this case, God is, according to David Norton's interpretation, is nature. So isn't that wise to submit to nature, to not go against it? It's kind of like
See,
Taoism.
in nature, there is no morality. The bird goes on one branch or the other. Nobody tells him or it where to go, how to do it. It's just
There's a
nature is autotelic. It just
there's an
happens.
that's
ecosystem.
the point.
If the bird goes into the wrong tree, it's going to be eaten by a snake. And if he goes on the other one, maybe not. And if he eats this way, he will survive. And if not, he won't. But there is no judgmental approach. It is it is the natural. It has to be this way. You have to submit to a being that you don't see, by the way. It sounds to me like a real gaslighting.
Well, the thing is, we would both see
Oh,
things in a different direction. And to go back to the idea of freedom of want, and to me, what I'm seeing in this here, in your words that you're speaking, is that your freedom of want is to want everybody to read this in a literal sense.
No,
And
no,
by
no, no,
being,
no, no. By all means, David. You asked my opinion. I tell you my opinion about the text, but far from me to tell someone you should interpret it this way or that other way. That's why I don't argue when somebody says, "Hey, I believe in God." I don't argue that. If they ask my opinion, and they say, "Well, do you believe in God?" And I said, "Well, first of all, let's define the word." Because if they ask me, "Do you believe in this coffee mug?" I would say, "What am I supposed to believe about it? Either I see it or I don't. I know it or I don't know." Now, if you want me to know the composition of the material that the coffee mug is made from, or what it's made for, what is the use, or what, so you see what I
well,
mean?
yeah, let me ask
so
you the question.
according
And you're the one that brought this up. How do you define God?
That's a to me. If you ask me, Louis, what do you think the word God means to me? I have come to the conclusion after studying many gods, many beliefs, many religions, many considerations about God. To me, God is an archetype. That means a symbol that the mind makes of the idea, the very notion of the absolute.
What is the
So,
absolute?
There you go. So what is the absolute? The absolute is definitely not relative because it's the absolute. So,
why is the absolute not relative?
So the absolute doesn't exist.
well, see, the absolute is reality as it is, no matter what anyone thinks about it.
Is
So then you
reality
believe in the
nature?
absolute.
So to me,
Is reality nature? So
reality is,
then
well, if you ask me what reality is, I will tell you reality is being and not being all at the same time, everywhere, anywhere, forever, and wherever. That's reality. And when I say being and not being, I am referring to the two aspectual qualities of reality, which is the phenomenal, something you can see, measure, touch, or even think. You know, your mind is phenomenal. You can't touch it, but you can
But
feel it.
without
It's
words,
self-aware.
without
But-
words, you would not be able to describe that what you just did.
Absolutely.
Right.
so reality is being and non-being is that
I'll give you an
con-
example.
concepts in the mind, those objects of beings and non-beings, they're all in the mind. So reality is whatever is the mind experiencing.
The words that you use
No,
to express the
no,
being.
no. But you're forgetting one side, Jairo. Imagine a reality where there is no complex self-awareness, whatever the kind of it, whether it's you and I or a mosquito. I don't know if the mosquito knows that there is a reality, but we can say that any self-aware consciousness that is a knowing that knows it is knowing. Just imagine a reality where knowing has emerged from. Reality is still there. Reality is still there. It is there. Although there's no one to look at it, and hence no one knows that there is a reality going on. And reality itself doesn't know either, because you would have to propose that reality has a brain on its own, that it can see itself through the moon. You see what I mean? So the knowing side, the relative knowing of the absolute, that's the distinction between absolute and the relative. So the absolute is what is and is not, because it's made of both. And the relative is any consideration regarding what is. So the answer to the question, what is God, I would say it is reality. But people give it a name and make it into a creature with ideas, with thoughts and volitions and decisions, like a freaking, CEO. But that's the way I understand the very idea of God. The representation, the representation that the mind tries to give to the absolute, the universe, trying to understand it. So God is our effort to try to define the absolute.
So
in relative terms.
So the relative domain is determined by minds, and the absolute domain is mindless. It's just there.
Is. So reality is, and then from reality, at some point, emerges some knowing regarding reality, which is in a self-aware mind, which thinks, considers, questions, tries to understand, etc., measures, studies, analyzes that which is itself. And that's the big problem with the mind in the case of human beings
So
is that we de-identified ourselves from the whole, and we don't think we are the whole of reality thinking about itself. We think that I, a different entity from reality, is looking at what is.
so when Jesus says to submit to the Father, perhaps he's saying to accept reality, the absolute reality as it is, and not to struggle against it, to have faith in it, because out of that absolute reality arose your relative mind, and so it provides, like it does all the little creatures. So why fuss about it? Why not
Well,
accept it as it is?
so it's exactly my interpretation. And of course, I have to change things around. I have to stop the idea of submitting to, because I am reality. So all I need to do is to think in terms that I am reality instead of thinking that I'm not reality, that I'm looking at it. So it's a unification, yoga, becoming together of the relative mind and the absolute. Boop. But there's no submission. There's no morality to it. There is no judgment to it.
Oddly, when you say there's no submission, the thing is, that's one thing I find different, from the teachings of Jesus and all these other people.
Right.
Because
Right.
the thing is, when you submit, what you're submitting to is the mistakes that you've made in the past, and saying, hey, these mistakes are wrong, that I've been going down this road and believing these things. And then what is called forgiveness between yourself and nature of the thing that you may have been doing that was wrong.
Yeah, but let's call it impractical, right?
Right
and wrong,
you call it what you want, but I mean, it's a reality that seems to be one of the things that are at the forefront of the politics of even today. Because the thing is, when somebody says something and they lie, there's never anybody going back and saying, oh yes, man, I screwed up. I said the wrong thing. I did the wrong thing. It's always a thing of creating more lies to cover up whatever somebody
I tell you what, one thing that has freed me a lot in this way of thinking that I have, which I'm not a Buddhist. I use Buddhism a lot because it has a lot of components in it, but I could talk about about anything, any religion or any philosophy, but one thing that I really became free from when I started changing the way I understood reality, and I freed myself from this idea of submission to, the serving the Lord. It's like, I'm a slave to my master. The two things that disappeared immediately were guilt and shame.
That's what happens in forgiveness.
I am guiltless and shameless.
Right.
And I recognize my mistakes, my impractical ways when I was being selfish, brutish, bad intention, short, impatient, etc., etc., etc.
So
But
David,
I'm free from guilt and shame.
So David, what do you think of the future of humanity? Like, is there hope in our ability to change our ways of thinking, to overcome our shame or guilt, to forgive everyone and go forward? I wish
Well,
Ronnie was
I personally feel that at the current time that we're at a crossroads like we've never been, to realize as a nation, as a people, as an individual, the mistakes that have been made, through community, through the churches, through all different sorts of, ways that we've been fed and understand different things. And the thing is, you know, if we continue going down the road that we're going down, you know, this goes into many, many different facets of life. You know, just like yesterday, I read something and I never gave it much thought, but this COVID-19 thing is a way. I love what Rami put out. I don't know if you've seen what Rami put out this past week on a meetup, where he went back and he showed that in 2017, they were sending test kits for COVID-19 out to many different nations. So what does that mean? That means that COVID-19 is not something that just came about in the beginning of this year, latter part of last year. Okay, there's a lot of information out there. Aside, I haven't even responded to Rami regarding that, but I know and I've seen a lot of information that is out there that was this here COVID-19 was almost a designer type of virus that was there a long time ago and predicted to happen at precisely at this time, and it has a purpose. Now, the thing is, you wonder why the, you know, if you take a look at it, the states that have Democratic governors and cities that have Democratic mayors are having all kinds of problems and enforcing the COVID-19 restrictions upon their population is once again for control of the overall population. So, you know, recently I also read that, you know, what they're going to do, and this has nothing to do with COVID-19, is a lot of our food supply and everything comes from California and Florida and Texas, you know, mostly the southern states, is that in states of the blue states, they're going to take and restrict the workers from working because of the COVID-19 and harvesting some of the products or the resources of the products that we get in the fall. Now, to me, I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see this happen because it's already been happening because they've been cutting back on the amount of food that's being, you know, processed and so on and so forth because all these restaurants have been out of business. Well, if they come back full blown again, it's going to put a demand on the resources of meat and vegetables and everything that we eat to force, you know, once again, chaos inside of the industrial complex of the United States. Now, there's a lot of things that are there that, you know, people don't look at. They just look at the COVID-19. Oh, well, it's a disease and I don't want to get it. So if I stay home and wear my mask and everything, nothing is I'm not going to get it. But the thing is, that if you look at the statistics and everything, there are therapies that are available for people and that are actually being used, but you never hear anything of this in the news because the thing is, this whole thing is designed to take and shape people's minds as to the way they think and what they do to control. And once again, I go back to in NATO, whether we want to admit it or not, seems to be behind the whole thing with the World Health Organization. You know, and this, once again, when you take and track it down, that's why I brought this up earlier about the want and also freedom from want and freedom from fear. You know, these things seem to all be originated in before World War II and what was created and the ideologies that were going to be created afterwards. And to me, when I see this just goes lock and step right with it. Everything down to the T.
I can only refer you to Matthew. I was going to say, don't worry.
Well, I agree with that. I mean, the thing is, I take that information and and you're exactly right. But the thing is, he also says, ask and seek and you shall find. Because I'll be honest with you, I like to know the answers. I look for answers, just like Cairo is filled with questions and answers.
He is recommended against it. He's saying,
So
don't ask questions. Don't worry.
No,
Just
but how can we so the key is if everyone would stop serving money and serve the Father, which is nature or reality, then we would see clearly what's going on.
Yeah, right. The thing is,
act correctly.
Right, just like you can take the COVID-19 thing and apply that to that very same thought, because of the fact that if you take and do your research on this to find out what how many people are actually dying, and if this thing is really a pandemic, that when you do the research and look at both sides of it, you'll see that it's really not a pandemic and it's more of a political ploy than anything else. And the thing is that the COVID thing is just something that's being used to scare or to make people afraid. And the thing is, that's how That's how this new world order operates. They use it through the cancel culture too, because what they do is they intimidate people saying, hey, if you don't do this thing that we're telling you to do, you don't have a job. Okay, so naturally people are going to do whatever they say, even though what they're saying and doing is quite irrelevant to their job. You know, the thing is that this is something that it totally exists because there's what's happened is the people that are being worshipped, okay, there are the people that are creating this, the scientists that they say are scientists in order to take and gain control over the population. So the thing is, what they're saying is really, if you examine it yourself and look at the structure, you know, it's something that is very, very bad. Just like Monday night or Thursday night football, which was one day ago. Look what happened when all these people stood united with Black Lives Matter. They were booed. I mean, the people don't want that. It's going to destroy this whole thing, and the people that design it know it. It's going to destroy the sports and the sports figures in this country. But the thing is, they don't realize it because they're looking at the whole situation in a different ideal, that Black Lives Matter, which is nothing more than a Marxist front for communism to be brought to this country. And the thing is, the black people, oddly enough, and even the Hispanics, I've heard that many of the Hispanics, as much as 50%, have realized what is actually going on with this whole thing. I don't know if it's true or not, but they're saying the same thing with the black population, you know? So
again, I point out that this contradiction of terms. If we started this conversation by, reading Matthew, and Matthew says, don't worry about a thing. God will provide.
That's the way a lot of people look at it.
So don't ask the question. Just go through your daily life. It doesn't tell us exactly what to do. It tells us to worship God, but doesn't tell us.
Yes, it does.
It tells us not to be judgmental.
But
No,
it's telling us.
delusion.
But it's telling us to not serve money, and if you follow the money, then you see that it leads to what politicians are saying. So we have to not follow politicians or anyone in authority.
So just go into nature and be a bird.
No, the thing is, you read this, like I say, once again, as a literal basis based on what you've learned through the political definitions of all these different words. Now, the thing
I just don't understand what Matthew is telling me. I just don't understand what he wants me to do.
Well, I know. The thing is, because you're not reading it as a parable to life.
So I'm misunderstanding Matthew.
Right.
Well, sorry, but I just can't get it. It's just like mathematics. I'm sorry,
no,
guys.
I understand that, Louise. I understand that that's the way 90% of the people look at it, maybe 99% of the people. But the thing is, they really don't need to read the whole handbook, as to what was saying. Because the thing is, you see, Jesus Christ also says that he never spoke without speaking a proverb or a parable, period. So the thing is, this whole thing is a proverb or a parable. Okay.
Dude, give it to me straight. Don't talk to me like I'm an idiot. That's what I would say. It's like, dude, can't you be straight? Can't you talk to me like I have a brain? You have to make stories, or so I have to interpret. But if I don't understand it, that is because I don't understand it, not because the parable doesn't make any sense. I just want to be spoken to straight. Hey, this is the deal. I just
That's what creates the problem. Because the thing is, what your literal understanding is different than somebody else. And the thing is, if you take your literal understanding compared to somebody that maybe is Islam or somebody that is a Christian, obviously, your opinion is different than a Christian. I mean, you've made that clear. Okay. So the thing is, even Buddhism, I would think that inside of Buddhism, that people are going to interpret, the substance of Buddhism or any other religion in different ways.
That's why I don't call myself a Buddhist, because if I start talking about Buddhism, people look at me like, no, that's not what it says in there. There's rebirth, and you can. And I say, no, there's no rebirth. Once you're dead, you're dead. The hell is that? So I'm against the idea of another life after life in heaven or in hell, and I'm against the idea of another life here as a bird or a frog. I am a nonconformist. when it comes to,
Well,
lines in the sand.
When it comes to life after death, the thing is, I don't make a judgment one way or the other. I'm totally neutral because I have no idea what death is like, what happens once a person dies, except for the fact that, he gets incinerated in one of your machines, or the thing is he gets buried in the ground. And the thing is,
But
after
the book is
basically all the
telling,
elements go back into the nature.
but the book is telling me, straight. If I behave, I will go to heaven, and I'll be in paradise with the Lord and the
That's what
Son sitting on the right. But that's what it says in there, and then I can interpret it in many ways. And I disagree with that. I disagree with rebirth. I disagree with transmigration. I disagree with anything that says that there is an individual here separate from the rest of reality.
That's why I say you look at everything as a literal understanding, which is true, and that's why most people do. So there's no when you do that, there's no opportunity to see things in any kind of different way. It's sort of like some people love to go to the stage plays because they see a story being presented through characters, through actors, and through words. But the reality of it is, it's not there. And some people find it very, very offensive. And other people enjoy the daylights out of it because it's telling them a story.
Yeah, I don't get offended either way. But if we go back to the original question that you posed at the beginning of the conversation, I can say that I personally feel free from wanting and from fearing. I'm free.
Right.
To me, everything is a natural flow in reality.
Are you free from worshiping?
Absolutely. As you can see, I don't see any line in any sand that I cannot cross, because worshiping is subjugating yourself, saying, okay, there's a line in here, I'm not going to cross it. That's worshiping. And to me, there is no line anywhere in the universe where the natural stops being natural to become supernatural. There's nothing above me. There's nothing beyond me. I am absolutely free from worshiping anything, anyone, any desire, any compulsion. I am completely free. That's what I call free will. I don't worship at all. Not myself. I don't even have an ego, because I don't have a self, because I don't see myself as separate from you, Jairo, the computer, or the tree out there. I see myself as reality that sees itself through.
So you don't see reality any different than anybody else?
I don't know how anybody else sees reality, but I see a lot of worshiping. I see a lot of worshiping, a lot of worrying, a lot of guilt, a lot of shame, and I'm free from all those ideas.
So David, how are we going to overcome this worship of money? Because isn't that the worship or love of money the root of all evil? So what we're seeing here with this COVID-19 pandemic and this attempt to control societies, perhaps to have create a one world government, perhaps it could be communist or socialist or whatever. But
you ask how we're going to
everyone, how are we going, or is there a future? Like, what's it going to look like 10 or 20 years from now? Is it going to be all technocratic? Is it, do you have faith in science, in true data-based what is it, evidence-based science, or is that suspect also? Because they could
the thing is
money to provide create the evidence that favors them, like they could manufacture the evidence, couldn't they? So what is and since it's sponsored or supported by money, then if we follow along, we're worshiping money. So how can we undo this? How can we overcome this our worship of money? Because everything we do, like we go to work, we're worshiping money. How can we let go of money and live like the birds?
Well, the thing is, I wrote, you know, I don't know how to answer your question. The thing is, what it's going to be like in 10 years from now, to be honest with you, I have no idea. You're asking how can this be overcome? Because obviously you're saying that you even think that COVID-19 is thing for, you know, designed to, you know, embellish people's pockets with money, which to me, when I do the research, there's no doubt about it, because you can look at Bill Gates and what he is putting forward, and also George Soros, which are loaded with money, bringing forth all these different things. And the foundation of all of them are the presence that what we're seeing on TV and what we're being told is under science. But there's another part of that too, where you have actual doctors that are stepping out and saying, hey, look, you got a therapy for this already in the form of hydroxychloroquine, because we're using it and prescribing it for our patients and it's working. But the thing is, the news media does not want people to see this, because if they see this, then they lose control, because people want to believe in the science. And if there's other scientists have contradictory opinion, then it's not good for their motives at all, and not good for Bill Gates and anybody else, because people will find out the truth. And the truth, as Jesus says, will set you free, which is, to me, something that's very true. But the thing is, what's going to happen with this, there's so much money and there's so many more people that are involved in this that I really do not know, unless people actually see the reality of what really exists with this whole thing. We're going to be following down a group of people for their money, wanting money, wanting to, and accepting lies as truth. It's going to become part of our lives if we go down that road. And the other opportunity is to take and do, each person has to do their own analysis on all of these different things to examine what is really happening in their lives, and what is happening in their community, whether it be in your family, whether it be in you know, the local community, the national community, whatever it is. It's up to each individual. And the thing is, when you listen to others without finding the truth to yourself, you have their truths, and their truths live in your life rather than your own truths. And that's the importance of people taking and doing their own investigations to find out their own truths about life. Just like Jesus says, ask and ye shall find, you know.
David, I have this thing about the truth shall set you free is so true, so beautiful. But it's, as one still has to ask, you know, the question, what is the truth, number one? And number two, what does it set you free from?
Well, it sets you free from, number one, a belief that you may have that was not true, that there's called forgiveness, okay? Because if you, just like yourself, you come to realize yourself that the way that you were thinking and the ways that you were taught was wrong. So you take and look for other means and other understanding for your answers in life, and which you did. So the thing is, you went through that process, whether you believe it or not.
So I'll try to answer my own question, because that's what I've been doing for the last 20 years. What is the truth? And what does it set you free from? And if you ask me, what is the truth? I will tell you that the truth is reality as it is. So, and when I say that, is the reality as it is, beyond any determination or judgment or belief or study or analysis or theories, et cetera, regarding that.
Would
So
that be absolute reality?
there you go. There you go.
So would that be a reality that is free of any minds, any biases?
Yes.
Objective reality?
It's a reality not thinking about itself. Because at the end of the day, again, I repeat that any thought or any idea of reality is of reality regarding itself. So the truth is reality, pure being.
Even if scientists...
Yeah. Yes, because reality, think or
and
measure it, and
evidence-based.
because science is an approximation to
Science
what
is
is.
a theory.
Yeah, it's a theory, but you know. So basically, let's put it this way: the truth is reality as it is, beyond any thinking about it. So the absolute, not thinking about it itself in relative ways. That's the truth, which is unthinkable to the human mind, because it's like, well, so anything that I think about reality is relative? Yes. But reality is absolute. So
Even
the
thinking,
closer,
even thinking of reality as there being absolute reality, that's also being relative about it.
yes. But see, in this way of thinking, in my theory of my epistemology, my worldview, it so happens that what is and what it thinks about itself is the same thing. It's just has degrees of clarity. There's no difference between what reality and what reality thinks about itself. It's just a matter of clarity. I say that any consciousness is a tool through which reality, or a process, a natural process, through which reality is able to see itself. You know? It's important for the process not to identify with itself, because it's so freaking smart. I think, therefore I am. That's the Cartesian way of putting things. I think, so I am. But what this thinking is thinking, it doesn't realize that it is the whole thinking about itself. So the part and the whole. The whole thinks about itself through the part. But it's the same thing. There's no separation. Only mental separation, only a psychological thing. But the moment that these things come together, and there's no misunderstanding about the identity or the nature of what's going on, then there's a clarity of understanding, and that is what I call the truth. Of course, clarity also is a function to infinity. So if a mind, the process through which the what is sees itself, is very, very smart, very clear, understands everything, then it sees itself clearly, like through a superconductor, right? And that is the truth. And what is the freedom from? And the freedom from is suffering, dukkha. Because once reality, which in and of itself doesn't suffer because it's the absolute, doesn't think about itself, doesn't have its brain, and the process through which it sees itself just come together harmoniously, there are no more questions, no more, what should I do, what should I not do, who's who, what's what, then there is no disharmony, there is no alienation between what is and how it thinks about itself. So the schizophrenia, disappears. The paranoia disappears. The alienation disappears. So you have a complete coming together, a perfect understanding of the absolute and its relative understanding, and then harmony ensues, peace ensues, and there is the dukkha nirodha, which is spelled in Pali, dukkha nirodha, the cessation of suffering. So the truth shall set you free is the proper understanding of reality through itself by itself will assuage existential suffering.
So, but can David seek the truth by deeper investigation into what's behind this and that, until at what point would he be satisfied that he has found the truth that would set him free?
So each consciousness is a world of its own, because reality looks at itself through each consciousness. So it's up for David to decide what the truth is and what he's free from.
But is that truth only valid for him, or could there be two different minds with two conflicting sets of truth? Like
Well,
my truth could be different
you
from your
could
truth.
have, when you think about it, as reality is the absolute, and it's all in and of itself, there could be two consciousnesses understanding it properly. The closer you are to the absolute, the less relative you become. This is so very clear. So the closer you become, you understand the absolute, the closer you become the absolute, because at the end of the day, understanding is becoming. Then you could say that
Yeah.
two individual minds could agree, concur as to their understanding of reality. The closer they are to what is, the closer they're going to agree, because there's only one reality. You don't have 25 different realities. There's only one God, in a sense. So either you understand God, or you worship God, or you don't. But two minds that would understand reality properly, or two minds that would worship God equally, they're going to become more and more and more and more similar to become one, to have a complete agreement, a complete understanding.
But what if those two minds are in a matrix, in an enclosed system, separate from other minds, and they're seeing one object and they're agreeing on it, and it's true for them, but outside their globe, other people that see that object, they don't concur. It's something else.
Right.
Would that be
So,
possible?
well,
It happens all the time, Ira.
the reality is that every consciousness is an aspect of reality. It's a part of the whole. And as being part of the whole, you already have a geographical positioning, you have a historical positioning, you have a cultural positioning, you have a traditional position. So you already start on a disadvantage in trying to create the same understanding, the same truth. It is difficult because these two consciousness come from different histories in time and place, in cultures, and blah, blah, blah. So it is very difficult for two minds to, and that's why there are so few people that think in these terms. Because when you think about it, you can think any which way you think. So your question is that it is not probable for two minds to have absolute concurrence regarding what is.
I like when you
But-
said Louis' understanding is becoming, and the thing is, when you say that, it reminds me of the Garden of Eden, because understanding is a tree of life. When people understand what's going on around them and in their own life, it is a great benefit that eliminates want and also fear.
Well, see, in the Bible, they put it in a different way.
The Bible is
moment-
comparable to life. That's all it
I
is.
understand, but they have a twisted way of putting things,
there's
because
two trees.
in the Bible they say, "Do not eat of the tree of knowledge,"
Of good
because
and evil.
knowledge, good and evil is knowledge, right?
Yeah, but knowledge is different than understanding. We gain
Well,
knowledge.
whatever it is, they present it as, you now, since you bit from the apple, and now you know what it is, what is the difference between good and evil, or because it's the tree of knowledge, now you're going to suffer for it.
Right.
You want to be so smart,
People
now you're
do.
going to suffer. And so it's telling me the contrary to what I'm saying, that the more you know, the less you suffer. But in the Bible, they say, no, now that you know, the more you know, you
But-
want to be so smart,
But
now you're going to suffer.
perhaps
The
it's
difference in the
saying
two
that
words, understanding
you're,
and knowledge, are two different words, and they take you out in two different places.
perhaps it's saying that by eating of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, not just of knowledge, that you're taking a bite at
How can-
duality.
How can you know if you don't know the difference between good and evil? What the hell do
But
you know?
perhaps there's a knowledge that doesn't involve good and evil, that involves just everything being good, that everything is perfect, and that's a knowledge of a non-duality knowledge that where there's no judgment, this is, there's
Well,
no
the thing
like,
is,
There's
The way
no
I look at
forces
this,
of want and fear. So good and evil also involves want and fear. So if we can overcome that kind of knowledge and go directly to non-dual knowledge, then everything is good, or everything is great just the way it is.
well, the whole thing is, even this passage that I read to you guys earlier, takes into the, the part of, as far as I'm concerned, knowledge of good and evil, because when it takes, it says if you, what is it? If you love, let's see, it says at the beginning, no man can serve two masters. Either he will hate one and love the other, which is knowledge of good and either evil, loving one, and then hating the other is the evil, reflecting to the tree of knowledge in the Genesis story, and despise the other. I mean, the thing is, there's several different words that you can use to look at both sides of good and evil. The thing is, in good and evil, when you're in position on it, you can't take the middle ground of it and don't make any judgment. And that's what Jesus is talking about here when he says, judge not that you be not judged. So
middle ground as in the middle way.
Well, I don't know, whatever you call it, or whatever in your understanding. But the thing
Tao or the Tao, the middle way, the middle ground. No, that there's no extremes. Everything in the middle. I concur with that.
well, the thing is, it's not only. I mean, he's saying to take that position to look at both sides of something. And the thing is, that's how a person gains understanding, which is the tree of life. So the thing is, when you take and use the word knowledge, that you need knowledge. Whenever you take knowledge on, you're taking on a position of either good or evil. May be good for you, but evil to somebody else. In the same way as with evil. Evil might be good to you, but not to somebody else.
Well,
So the thing is, then you get to the point to where what happens is you're really not understanding, what is good or what is evil, but understanding only the interpretation of your own existence.
Can you understand without taking sides?
Understand without what?
Without taking sides, without taking a position.
Yeah, you can understand without taking a position. I do it all the time. I got a neighbor over here. He thinks I'm a racist because I have a Trump sign in my front yard. So he's got on this big billboard, racism, having it directed towards me. But he doesn't know that I have grandchildren. I have nieces and nephews that are half black and white. And I really don't care what a person's race is, as far as I'm concerned. I look at them as individuals, and what comes out of their mouth is people, But the thing is, he doesn't know this. But to him, anybody that supports Trump is a racist. And so I have that label in his mind that I'm a racist because I support Trump.
Do you, this is a political question, 100% political question.
Right.
By putting a Trump sign on your front yard, how do you think you are supporting Trump's campaign?
I'm supporting
let me ask another question. By putting a sign, a Trump sign on your front yard, do you think you're going to convince anyone to vote for him that otherwise would not have voted for him?
Well, not really. I don't think that at all. But the only thing is, it does show, the support that he has throughout the neighborhood, because I'm not the only one that does this.
If anything,
the thing is, myself, I wouldn't have done it. My wife's the one that did this.
See,
I accept that.
Yeah.
I accept
at the end of the day, the only thing that the one is doing by putting a sign out there is expressing his volition, his ideas, blah blah blah. But
Right.
It's not going to change anybody's vote. If anything, it's just going to distinguish yourself from the other guy that puts a Biden sign, and you're going to look at each other.
Well, but no, the thing is, though, you see, like my neighbor, he's a union guy, and I know this. And the thing is, I know union people get fed a lot of different things because I used to belong to a union. I know, So the thing is, in his own mind, for some reason, because he thinks that we have a Trump sign, that I'm also a racist, which is totally not true. And the thing is, you can't tell a person tells their story through their words. And if you don't listen to their words or have conversation, you have no idea what that person is about. And to make judgment upon them, just because they support a certain thing that has been labeled throughout the media. And to me, quite frankly, I think it's false, because Trump has done more for the black community than any other president since Abraham Lincoln, So the thing is, his label is sort of, to me, fictitious. But the thing is, that's the way people who are ingrained in their beliefs, that's their knowledge. That's what they think.
My understanding of reality is a little bit what we're talking about. I don't put any sign on my front yard, but I do talk about I do have conversations like this one, which is a beautiful conversation about concepts, ideas. What do you think? What do you understand? How do you interpret this or that? It's a civilized, humanistic conversation. So I take my signs off, first of all. I'm neither Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, anyist, or, the only thing that I know, I'm a realist.
That's not true. That's not true, Luis, because as soon as you open your mouth and you start talking about different things, your sign is your words. Your words come out, and just like you talk about the dharma and the karma and all these other different things.
Well, I don't.
That's your billboard.
Let's put it
right
this
there.
way. I don't. But whoever talks to me and asks questions is asking for my billboard.
Right. Okay. There's
But
nothing wrong with
in a sense of a conversation, I don't simplify by putting a sign out there.
Right.
Say, hey, what do you think about reality? Buddhist. No, because I don't route for anybody. If anything, I would say realist. I'm a realist. I look at reality, and you are reality, I'm reality, blah, blah, blah. So I don't open my mouth unless somebody really wants to find out what I think.
Yeah, I don't know what I'd call myself, to be honest with you. I don't know, because the thing is, what's real to one person may not be real to another person. So my reality may not be along with yours, but the only thing is I do look at different things to analyze.
Well, I think David, we can agree at least.
Though. I don't.
David, you're a wordist. Wordist.
So David, I think we can agree on this, that the reality that you and I look at is the same reality. We see the same tree. No, it's not. The difference is how we think or feel about it. But the tree that we look at, this thing over here, the laptop on your desk, if we look at it, we're going to see the same darn thing. It looks the same. You know what I mean? But we think differently about it. So at least we can agree there's one reality. It's not like you're looking at one reality and I'm looking at the other one, because it's the same one.
No. Okay, that's a coffee cup. That coffee cup is different than any coffee cup that I may have.
But we both look at the same one. What I'm trying to say is that when we look at reality, we look at the one reality, you and I. We think different about it. We understand it different, et cetera, et cetera. But the absolute reality as it is one. There's no 25
It's only
of them.
one. It's only one if we have the same understanding of the words that represent the
right. So at least we can agree that there's one reality, and then we can disagree on how we look at it and how we understand it. But at least there's a point of reference.
Right.
Is that when we look at reality, after having bitten the tree of knowledge of good and evil, then we're forming an opinion on that reality. So instead we should take on the tree of life, and that is the absolutist view, where there is no good and evil. It's just equanimous. It's both good and evil, and neither good and evil, and beyond it.
Right. That's called understanding.
So when we understand reality, then we're enlightened. We're a Buddha, and we have been set free.
Right. Amen to that.
That's the same way, and it's the same way in Christianity too. It happens in the same way when somebody understands the reality of a situation and can see both sides of it, and make decisions based upon what's best for them, then they're there. Same thing.
So Luis Casino should. So David, are you gonna take your Trump sign down, because that upsets your neighbor?
No,
that causes harm. No,
it would have said his wife. It would have said his wife. He takes the sign down. Forget about the neighbor.
I'm not taking it down. I don't want it. I even got a flag out there too. I wrote, it's a pretty good sized flag, probably 3x6 or something.
Wow.
And I put that up myself. So the thing is, when I see, when I'm driving around town now, I'm seeing these what they call, I guess, mini Trump rallies. There'll be maybe 100 or 200 people standing around on a street corner waving flags, American flags and Trump's flags and things like that. You know, I stop in and join them. You know, so
Yeah.
yep. Yeah. The thing is, on the other
Like-minded.
side, you see on the other side, there's always people on the other side too. The Trump's group. There's about 3 or 4 people that are Antifa people, you know, claiming against them that are somewhere around. But they're still just a minority.
If I were in charge of the Democratic Party, I would instruct everyone to start carrying flags.
Start carrying flags?
Just like the the Republicans.
No, they can't do that, Luis, because they all their movies and all their films of their group and everything, they burn flags. They don't carry flags. They're known for burning flags.
I would instruct them to go ahead and start carrying flags, so at least we would have a
then
chance
burn
of
them.
getting some guys from the Republican Party to go and vote for us instead of aggravating the hell out of them.
No, they burn flags. They don't carry.
I'm
flags.
telling you, if I would be a very dangerous politician. I would confuse the hell out of everybody. It's like, what do you mean? We're going to start carrying flags like the Republican? Yes, do that.
Now, the thing is, they're doing that anyway. They're confusing the daylights out of everybody, period. The Democrats are. That's just their nature of what they do. You know, just like Nancy Pelosi and that thing, she tells people how to smear people. I mean, that there is the ideal of a political policy. This is how you go out and make that guy look like an asshole, okay? And then the thing is, she gives instructions to do that. I mean, that's the kind of people they were, but I don't really want to live in a world like that myself, you know? A lot of people, I guess, do. So,
well, guys, I think we have reached the end of another beautiful Zoom conversation.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm going to get out of here too. So I'm saying adios to all you guys and going to leave for now. So
I always enjoy these chats, guys. It's
be safe.
Be safe too. Take care.
So we'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.
And
wear your mask with an American flag on it.
I don't wear a mask unless I'm in my Uber car calling somebody around. And then the thing is, I only do it because it's mandatory for my job. So
I would like to propose. I would like to propose a subject of the next Zoom discussion.
Yeah.
Which somehow analyzes the last 3 years of life of Maslow.
Of who?
Maslow, the guy that designed the pyramid of needs. It was a psychologist. It belonged to the positive psychology wave in the 70s and 80s. And there is a part of his life and his work that is very unknown, hasn't been followed up on. I just discovered it this past week. Maslow had a heart attack when he was 50 something. He survived it and he lived another 3 or 4 years. And in that period, which he called post-mortem period, he refined his findings, psychological findings on the human mind. And it's a time that I'm studying now. People didn't follow in it, and I think it's very interesting. So if you guys are interested in that and you want to kind of prepare for it,
okay, how do you spell his name? What's his name?
M as in mommy.
Yeah.
A-M-A-S-L-O-W. Maslow.
Does he have a first name?
M-A-S-L-O-W.
Does he have a first name?
Yes.
Abraham Maslow.
There you go. Abraham Maslow. He wrote a book at the end of his life, which I think I'm going to try to find it. So maybe you can, and you can find it on archive.org for free. Let's see if I can find that book.
That's all right. I'll check him out and I'll see. So I'm going to keep going.
And study what he called the Z theory.
You know, the thing is that fascinates me, these people like Marx and Nietzsche and, what's the other one before them? These guys are all ex-Christians. And what they seem to do is just take Christianity and their their beliefs in Christianity and create something new that has nothing to do with any kind of religion. And to me, it's the same thing as far as I'm concerned in a lot of their aspects, you know. It
Well,
just
they're all trying to understand, like you and I.
yeah, but the thing is, sometimes you have to go and look at things in a different aspect in order to take and understand something. You
It's
know, of
everyone's
which they,
prerogative. It's everyone's
know.
prerogative.
but the thing is,
Yeah.
their writings and their ideals and everything seem to be all the same. It's, you know, I like to find new stuff, you know, things that are new, things that are creative. Why did this happen, you know? And look into the depths of what it might be, just like the FDR and the influence that this really has. And I can take and see it, how NATO and Bill Gates and all these people are influencing, you know, through the consciousness of the Atlantic Charter, you know, all that
It is
stuff.
it is clear that to your question, my answer has always been there are two types of understanding: the conventional understanding, you know, the rational, logical. How did this happen? Why this guy did this and that and the other?
That's
Then there's
knowledge
the
of good and evil. Go ahead.
and then there's the non-conventional understanding, which is non-conventional. So it has to be non-logical, non-rational, non-emotional. Has to be some other kind of understanding, which is the metaphysical, the world of ideas, the non-conventional, also called transcendent, which, you know, doesn't look at things so much as it looks to the nature of things, the essence of anything.
Well, Louise, I like your definition of understanding is becoming, which is very true in my world. So we'll
Yeah.
catch you all next week.
You got it. Okay, guys.
Okay. Thank
Hasta la
you so
vista,
much.
baby.
Thank you, Luis. Thank you,
Always.
David.
Always, always, always. Take care.
Take care. Bye.